if yourselves, we'll have a very short period to ask questions for a Q&A session after we finish our presentations. We're going to try to keep our presentations short, okay? Let me start with the book, A Greater Reality, and let me share my screen, and then we'll go to Jacob. He's the person that's developing our two websites, one for the book and the other one for the documentary, and then we'll go to Helene and her husband, Kevin, which most of you have met. So I've got the share screen here, and let me pull that up. And as can everyone see the title of our book? Someone just tell me yes.
I can see it, Ray.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Jacob.
Yes, we can see it, Ray.
Beautiful. Thank you. This is going to be the front cover of the book. We're going to have 4 volumes. Okay. The first 2 volumes are theoretical volumes. The volumes 3 and 4 are going to be chapters by experiencers. And what I tried to capture here, everything is personally designed by me. I hired a graphic artist to do this, but here you'll see Leonardo da Vinci's Vesuvian Man in the background, all lighted up as if it's humankind being elevated to a higher dimension. And then we have zeros and ones, binary codes, which is many of the academics in our organization believe, and Edgar believed it, and Dr. Rudy Shields, that we are able to tap in information, for lack of a better term, from the Akashic records, 0-point energy fields, and we're illustrating it by this binary code. And then I had here many of the different ways that humans are piercing the veil in our reality and are having contact with non-human intelligence. And the major ones, in my opinion, are near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFOs, my preferred term is UAPs, and ghosts or spirits, the deceased. And some of you might have picked this up, NOUS, okay? Some of you scholars in religion and philosophy would know that this is a Greek word which means knowledge, wisdom. Anyway, I'm giving away the story here by telling you that. And these are other commonly called paranormal ESP psi phenomenon that are associated with the contact modalities. And we have 5 co-editors of the book. Myself, Dr. Rudy Shields, who is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard, Dr. John Klimo, who taught psychology for over 45 years, primarily out of California-based schools, and he got his PhD from Brown. Dr. Michael Grosso got his PhD in philosophy from Columbia University, and also a professor of philosophy for over 45 years. And then Dr. Jeffrey Long, who just recently retired, applause for Jeffrey, and he is one of the leading NDE researchers in the world, and also a joint winner with several of the members here on our call of the Bob Bigelow Consciousness Essay Contest. And John Klimo, unfortunately, is not here today because he suffered a stroke and he's recovering. And we did have a previous presentation to all of the other co-editors and about 5 or 6 other individuals. So this is our second round. Okay, now the next object I want to show you is just, I sent to everyone here a 1-page description of our book. I'm not going to be articulating it in detail again, but basically read this one paragraph and say that the CCRI, which is the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, argues that mind and consciousness are fundamental, non-local, and that matter, energy, and information are ultimately grounded in one mind and consciousness. We introduced the post-materialist hypothesis that consciousness is primary, the philosophical position that the only thing that exists is consciousness. We hypothesize that all of the contact modalities are interrelated via a manipulation of space-time, and by definition might be interdimensional in nature. We argue that there is a range of states of consciousness, the contact modalities, where we can access both non-physical and physical realms and interact with perceived non-human intelligence via our ordinary senses. For all of these reasons, we assert that the contact modalities need to be studied as one phenomenon, as manifestations of a single greater source of mind and consciousness. Now, obviously, the phrasing can change according to the individual, but this is my best attempt to, in one short paragraph, to re-articulate the mission of our book. What you're going to be seeing now is the first 2 volumes, the theoretical chapters of our book. I still haven't done volumes 3 and 4, the experiencer chapters. That will be done soon. But basically, Dr. Jeffrey Kripal is a professor of, actually, he's the dean of humanities at Rice University. And he was a professor, and he still is, of religion and philosophy. And for those of you that do not know about Rice University, it's like a little Harvard. You need like a 1450 on your SATs to be admitted. It's a very reputable university. I would say similar at the level of Vanderbilt for the Southern universities. So he's written also like 10 books on these topics. And he's extremely supportive. So he wrote the prologue for the book. I still have to finish my introductory chapter. I only worked on it for 4 nights. Everything else is done except for my chapter. So I deserve a slap on the wrist. And I'll hopefully it'll be done within the next 2 weeks. I give an example of the experiencer chapters, a chapter by Dr. Melinda Greer. She just retired. She is a pediatric doctor that works in a hospital in her native state of Oklahoma. She's basically coming out of the closet, and she can now take a deep breath because she just retired. She was very, very scared that by coming out and being interviewed and having her chapter published, that it would have ramifications on her work. So now that she just retired, she's like, Ray, you could publicize it all over the place. I don't care. It is what it is. I am who I am. So, and then we have a section here, section 2, titled The Primacy of Consciousness. And this literally is a who's who of individuals that have written about consciousness. Dr. Larry Dossey, also a medical doctor, Dr. Bruce Grayson, a professor at the University of Virginia, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, together with Dr. Jim Tucker, also at the University of Virginia, a professor of psychiatry, and they're both associated with the Division of Perceptual Studies. Peter Sturrock is a PhD physicist, retired for many, many years from Stanford University, always has had a deep interest on consciousness and UFOs and also the paranormal. Well, he's not a PhD, he's like I am, all but dissertation. Tom Campbell wrote a major paper, 60-something pages, on his theory that we live in a virtual reality. And it's a difficult read for many, but you can get through it. All of these articles are not meant for PhD academics. They're meant for the layperson. Larry Dossey wrote a chapter, The One Mind of Consciousness, which is based off his one book. I think it was also titled The One Mind of Consciousness. Giorgio Piacenza, who's with us today, wrote an article applying integral theory to consciousness and the contact modalities. And then William Terniet wrote a chapter on the extraterrestrial cosmology of consciousness. And this was based upon an interview with the man that channels grays. I think he used a different name for them, but it was extremely well written. It read just like any other article in our book, and so I thought it was important for people to know about that. And then Jeffrey, who's in our call right now, we interviewed him, and I have the transcripts for his interview, and it was primarily focused on the topic of consciousness and the contact modalities. And then Michael Grosso wrote a specific chapter, Contact with Transcendent Mind. And that's a topic that he's been writing about for over 30 years. Dr. Glenn Ryan, a PhD from the University of London in biochemistry, he took Edgar Mitchell's, what I consider his magnum opus article that was only published in one other place, and that's in the Journal of Cosmology, which is Dr. Rudy Shields' journal on astrophysics. And that article is a very dense and difficult article to get through. I had to read it several times myself, but it's basically an article of how we as humans are able to pierce the pierce the veil of our reality and be able to interact with the greater reality. And it's his work with Bernard Heisch, a physicist, and also Hal Puthoff, another physicist. Both of them at one time were associated with Stanford University, and several other PhD physicists that Edgar had worked with over many years. So Dr. Glenn Ryan took that paper and he applied it to the contact modalities. And then Dr. Rudy Shields wrote an article as well, the computer model of consciousness and the contact modalities. And then Giorgio applied Edgar's quantum hologram theory of consciousness to the topic of consciousness and the contact modalities. And then Dr. Joe Lewis wrote a book many years ago titled The God Hypothesis. And he had a very important chapter in there, which is a chapter about Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe. And so that chapter by Dr. Lewis is an abbreviated condensed version of the book. And he wrote it for the normal Joe to be able to understand it. So that's the topic of non-local consciousness, telepathy, and the quantum hologram. And then the next section is the topic of near-death experiences and the survival of consciousness. And that's the category that Dr. Jeffrey Mishloff won the Bigelow Grand Prize for the essay contest. By the way, Jeffrey, I need a couple of $1,000, okay? I have an emergency. So anyway, he wrote an extremely important article on the survival of consciousness. And we also have Dr. Sharon Hewitt-Rawlett with us in our phone call. And she, together with Dr. Jeffrey Long, won a consolation prize. Still enough to buy a nice BMW with it if you want to, with that consolation prize. But again, both of them wrote extremely important articles on the survival of consciousness. And once again, Sharon, thank you so much for allowing us to publish your important article. We also have an article by Dr. Bruce Grayson, who again is one of the pioneers of near-death research. And he wrote an article titled, I summarized it, but it's an overview of NDE research. And then Jeffrey Long, I conducted an interview of Jeffrey at his home in Houma, Louisiana. And again, it's a mind-blowing interview because I asked him questions that no one has ever asked before. For example, all of these people here that I've mentioned, the vast majority of them, when you ask them, is consciousness primary? They will all, said, yes, obviously, of course, And Raymond Moody said, Ray, I know nothing but consciousness, And so same thing, we interviewed Raymond Moody in Alabama, and it was the Dr. Jeffrey Long interview was a transcription of an interview I did with him, not the interview that for the video. This is a separate conversation I had with him. And then Raymond Moody, obviously, the godfather of near-death experience research. the transcription interview. Again, we focused on topics that are not commonly heard in many of his YouTube interviews. And then on the topic of out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and consciousness, we really have a who's who of people that focus in this area. Stephanie Schwartz was really one of the pioneers of remote viewing, non-coordinate remote viewing. And he's published articles on this topic since the 70s. And he still continues to this day publishing articles on consciousness and non-coordinate remote viewing. Julia Sellers, I don't know whether she's on our call or not, but basically Julia has been studying out-of-body experiences for over 20 years. Her husband has had thousands of OBEs, and also Julia has had the same experience as well. So she did a literature review of out-of-body experiences. And Marilyn Hughes, a major experiencer and major researcher, has had, literally thousands of OBEs and astral travel and remote viewing experiences throughout her lifetime. And she's still fairly young. But again, she's written hundreds of articles on which she publishes on her website. And so I was privileged enough to for Marilyn to agree to write an overview of OBEs, astral travel, and remote viewing from all her personal experiences and all of her research on the topic. And then Daniel Rection, who is, I believe is on our phone call right now, he wrote an overview, literature review on lucid dreams as a contact modalities. And that's a topic that is really rarely associated with the contact modalities and rarely discussed. But he is very well educated on that topic. And he wrote a literature review, what people have written about this phenomenon. And then in terms of the topic of ghosts, spirits, and spiritual transformation, again, we have a who's who of people that have focused on his work for many, many years. Dr. Gary Schwartz, a tenured professor at Harvard, at Yale. He's for 20 years, he's been at the University of Arizona. He's written numerous books on this topic. And he wrote a new article, which has never been published anywhere before, titled The Survival of Consciousness Research, specifically for our book. And then Edgar Mitchell wrote an article many years ago on his quantum hologram theory of consciousness and the merging of science and spirituality. And then Dr. Eric Olet, who is a professor in Canada, he wrote an article on the Marian apparitions. And Paul Eno, who we have on our call, he wrote a chapter titled Ghosts, Poltergeists, Parasites, Parallel Worlds, and God. And again, some of these topics are topics that are not commonly discussed without people smirking and laughing, okay? But there's serious work that needs to be done in these arenas, especially on this topic of parasites. We have 3 individuals that wrote about their experiences with these attachments, where these negative entities attached to them. And all 3 of them are professionals, by the way. One is a retired school teacher, a master's degree. Another man has an MBA. So anyway, very important article. And Reverend Michael Carter, who is an ordained minister, graduate of the New York Theological Seminary, a major contact experiencer, wrote a chapter on the spiritual transformation of the contact experiencer. And then we have articles by 2 professors. One is a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, Dr. Roland Griffiths, and the other one is Christopher Timmerman. And he's a PhD out of the UK. And both of them wrote articles about DMT. Dr. Timmerman wrote an article about how DMT models the near-death experience. And Dr. Roland Griffiths talk about the contact experiences associated with psilocybin and DMT. Now, these are articles that are free articles that some of you don't know, that some of these academic articles, they give you the permission to be able to republish them in any capacity. Some of them have restrictions but these two did not have restrictions. So I wanted to be able to show to our readers that yes, you take psilocybin, the active chemical in magic mushrooms, DMT, the active chemical in ayahuasca, and you're going to be talking to non-human intelligence and communicating with them, and then we have many articles here on the UAP contact phenomenon. Why? Because I met so many people from our first book, Beyond UFOs, and I maintained that relationship. And here we have many, many different articles that are really radical articles that talk about a different paradigm of how to view UFOs, UAPs, okay? Some of the people here, Brad Steiger, before he died, he wrote a chapter at the conclusion for Beyond UFOs, and he also gave me an article that I could use for further publication in the future, titled 17 Theories for UFO Contact. Dr. John Climo article is basically an article that talks about the UFO contact experience as an interdimensional phenomenon, a consciousness-based phenomenon. Dr. Joseph Burks, who's a retired emergency room physician, a major experiencer, he wrote an important paper on his theory of the virtual reality model of UAP contact. And I asked him to write that article 5 years ago because both of us shared the same hypothesis, that we're living in a virtual reality. And again, my perspective is more affiliated with the NDE version of the virtual reality thesis. So I asked him to write that paper, and he wrote about 70 to 80 pages on his thesis. Then I won't mention her name publicly, but she is an experiencer, and she wrote about the UFO phenomenon in mainland China. And then Brett Rains wrote a book about John Keel and his theory about the UAPs and the paranormal. And so he wrote a chapter, which is a condensed version of his book for our book. Dr. Massimo Teodorani is, like Rudy Shield, a professor of astrophysics out of the University of Bologna in Italy. And he also has a radical theory of UFOs. So he presents that theory and hypothesis in our paper. Dr. Charles Emmons is a professor of I believe sociology at Gettysburg University, and he's been writing about UFOs and consciousness, I guess, for over 40 years. And so he wrote a chapter on his thesis on linking UAPs to consciousness. Mary Rodwell was one of the co-founders of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, and she wrote a paper which presents an overview of her work with other experiencers and her theory of what might be going on. And again, it's an alternative to the materialist mainstream UFO perspective. Michael Grosso, one of our co-editors, wrote a new chapter just for our book on UFOs, psychical research, and the topic of religion. John Alexander has been preaching what we're presenting in our book for many, many, many years. John was pretty much alone in the ufology field, talking to the unconverted. But now I think the tide is starting to turn slowly. And so we are republishing his article, Phenomenon Without Borders, with that basically the field of ufology needs to be seen within the context of consciousness, because John also believes that consciousness is primary, and that that all of what we commonly call the paranormal needs to be studied as one phenomenon. So it's basically the thesis of our book. Carol Rainey wrote an article many, many years ago about her ex-husband, Bud Hopkins, and really how the abuses of Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs in interviewing and doing hypnotic regression of experiencers And she basically littered her article with how they created that alien abduction phenomenon, at least what it's come to believe to be. Not saying that it doesn't exist, but at least the variables that people associate it, that it's not true, not correct. So George Knapp, we interviewed George Knapp at the home of Dr. John Alexander, and again, just like many of the individuals here, he also believes that consciousness is primary, and that we need to move away from materialist ufology into a consciousness-based paradigm. And then we have for the future research that needs to be done. I wrote a recommendation for future research. Again, it's short; it's like 10 pages or 12 pages. And then Dr. Raul Valverde and Chet Swanson. Raul is a professor of information sciences at Concordia University in Canada, and he wrote a much more detailed paper. How do we apply a quantum matrix ontology for an NDE research? Dr. Jeffrey Long allowed Raul to download all of his statistical data on near-death experiencers and also OBE experiencers, which Jeffrey has never crunched out that data. So Raul's going to be doing that work for his work and for the CCRI. And then for the conclusion, we have again very powerful articles. One is an article by Dennis Briefer, who one time was the president of the John Mack Institute, and it's a conclusion article, an overview of the greater reality and consciousness. And Dennis is a retired engineer by trade, major experiencer as well. And then Gary Schwartz and Dr. Mario Beauregard, they authorized me to republish a very important synopsis of the post-materialist paradigm of consciousness. And then Stephanie Schwartz wrote a very important article on Thomas Kuhn, and he associated this emerging paradigm of consciousness with Thomas Kuhn's book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And then finally, John Climo wrote an article of how the fields of psychology and psychiatry have to change to accommodate experiencers of the contact modalities. And again, this is an academic article. It's like 70 pages, very detailed, very authoritative, how psychology and psychiatry need to change because these experiences, this phenomenon is very, very real. Now, let me get out of here. And there's a couple of people that want to get admitted. So let me go back and let me see where is the admit all again. Okay, there's 4 people. I apologize for this little hiatus here, but I want to make sure that everyone gets admitted here. Okay, so the book, again, once again, it's going to have 4 volumes. What I presented is just volume 1 and volume 2.
Start meeting now.
Oh, great. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, if everyone can mute your call for the time being, thank you. And then we'll unmute it for question and answers. Let me see, let me just mute the other ones here. Okay, perfect. As I said before, volumes 3 and 4, which I have not finished the table of contents, we're going to have close to 80 chapters by experiencers. Again, these are individuals that have had 3 or more major experiences of the contact modalities. One of them is looking at me right now, Preston Dennett. Preston has seen the spirit of his deceased mother right in front of him. He's had literally hundreds of out-of-body experiences and astral traveling experiences. He's seen a boatload of UAPs, some at very close distances. He's had actual physical contact experiences with various forms of non-human intelligence. So that's what our experiencer chapter is going to have, people with very similar experiences. not just, oh, I saw a little UFO in the sky, So May 15th is what I'm shooting for volumes 1 and 2, to have that ready to be published. Everyone here is going to get a copy of it. What I want to be able to do is put all the 4 volumes on Kindle and make it available for like, $20. There's over 2,500 pages for $20, which is, very, very reasonable. And then the hard copy books, I'll make it pretty much at whatever Amazon, allows us to purchase it at a minimum price. But these volumes are going to be expected to be 600 or more pages, each of them. So if you're interested in reading them, you better set a lot of time aside for it. And now I want to turn over the presentation to Jacob. Jacob's going to be talking about our 2 websites. One is for the book and one is for the documentary. Jacob?
Yep. So Ray, I need you to enable the share screen function for me again.
Okay, I see here share screen, multiple participants can share simultaneously. Is that enough there? Okay.
Yep.
All right, Jacob.
Let's see if I can do it. All right. Yep. Okay. Can everybody see my screen, Ray? Can you see it?
I can see it. Yes, I can see it.
All right.
We can see it. Looks good.
Awesome. So yeah, as Ray said, I'll just go ahead and present the website that we're creating. It's going to be under agreaterreality.com. And we're also going to have a separate website, A Greater Reality. I believe it's themovie.com, and that will be for the upcoming documentary. So the purpose of agreaterreality.com is to be a promotion site for the book. It will eventually evolve into something bigger. It will become we envision it becoming a central hub and platform to basically convey the new paradigm of non-local consciousness, with CCRI presented as a forerunner. So we have a bunch of plans of kind of making it an all-encompassing site where you can go for all kinds of information and such. So that's the greater plan. The site is currently in development now. We are coming to an end of getting the homepage all set up. So it's going to have a homepage. It's going to have a page called What is Consciousness, Contact Modalities, a Contact Us page, Donate page, a Buy Book page, and then a link to the documentary site. I'm going to go ahead and show you our progress so far, but it doesn't quite reflect where we're going to, our ultimate goal. So I'll go ahead and kind of outline it real quick, like what the homepage will look like. So when you land to the homepage, there's going to be an introduction that kind of just states exactly what we're saying. It's going to say a greater reality right up in front. And then it's going to say as a subtitle, the non-local paradigm of the new paradigm, basically. Then we're going to have a illustration illustrating the Kuhn paradigm shift, which is a phenomenon that has been seen in history every time there's a new paradigm. So when Newton came out with his whole thing, and then when we had the whole quantum mechanics come out, all that, there's always a shift where at first it's the science is rejected violently, and then it's eventually accepted. But it's kind of like humanity has a tapestry of how it thinks the world works. And then there's just one thread in the corner, and you pull that thread and it rips the whole tapestry out. And you've got this whole new thing underneath it that science now has to accept, and it becomes mainstream science. So underneath that, we'll have the co-editors. So it'll basically be a row of all the co-editors front and center with a quick biography. And then we'll have the book cover, and then a collage of authors. So all the authors that are in the book, they're going to have their picture on the site. And then when you click on that picture, you can be taken to a biography, and Also, it will list what article that they've written and links to any websites that they have on their own. So if they have a blog of their own or something like that, it will link back to that. Then we'll have a section on the implications of everything that we are talking about. So the implications being, pretty much that we have scientific proof for what happens when you die, the implications for what this means for humanity, that we need to take better care of our planet, all those different things. So the implications are going to be right there in center too. And then we're going to continue with the author's collage. And then we have a table of contents. So the table of contents also has links for the authors. So you can open up that biography I mentioned before, and listed will be their sites, all that stuff. So there's a bunch of links on the site linking back to the authors. So that is the layout. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what we've got in development for the homepage. Like I said, it's not exactly reflective of where we want to get. So let me go ahead and see if I can just. Are you guys able to see this?
Yes, I can see it.
All right, perfect. Okay, so this is what the homepage looks like. You scroll down here. This is the co-editor section I mentioned before. So we've got our co-editors, the book cover, the author photo collage will go here. We have a blurb about the contact modalities. This is going to be replaced with the implications, and then the table of contents. And all of these will link to the authors themselves. So a biography, and then those links I mentioned before.
And also, it's going to be every author of all 4 volumes. So, so we're not going to leave anyone out. But we're working right now on volumes 1 and 2.
That's right. All right, back to my slideshow. Let me open this back up. All right. So the site, we have different phases of development. Phase 1 is what I just illustrated. Phase 2 is the content for the experience of chapters. So the additional content that's going to be in phase 2 is to be determined. Phase 3. So this is where things get exciting. This is down the road. We plan on having a full-featured blog platform for every researcher involved with CCRI. So if you are involved in any way, you're eligible to have your own account. And it's a blog platform where you can make your own articles. And these articles will participate in our newsletter, which will be curated and sent out to people who sign up for the newsletter. And also we'll have a homepage feed of these new articles. We'll also have a configurable inquiry contact system. So for your articles, you can set up how you want to be contacted, if at all. So if you want to participate in this blog platform, readers can contact you via a form. They fill out the form, email comes into your email box. You can set up how often you want to be notified. Since everybody's pretty busy, the whole system will be able to be configured. You can also link back to your own blog, your own site, if you have it. So you can either copy and paste content over to our blog or link back to your blog. And we also have an analytics system so that you can see who's viewing your article, and so on and so forth. So that is phase 3. It's basically a research blog that's ongoing. And we hope that we can collect all the people who are involved in this new paradigm and get them on our site so that we have a one-stop shop for this paradigm, and where everybody can go and look and see what's going on with the latest and greatest research behind the paradigm. Phase 4 is a research platform. So some of you might know about the free organization and the surveys that they've done. So we're hoping to kind of put that on the web, have a in-house developed survey technology where we can basically do these surveys out to the public and have them come to our site to do the surveys for different for research purposes. These surveys can have open-ended questions, and we're also going to have an AI that assists in cataloging these questions. So we'll have different data research tools to shift through this data to make it more efficient to do so, and more based on feedback. So this phase 4 is definitely the most up in the air. So all this is subjected to change on to how things are going and what's important. So if anybody has any other ideas of how they want this to work, they can definitely hit Ray up and let them know.
And also, I just want to emphasize that we're going to be forming a committee just for that research group. And hopefully, Dr. Raul Valverde will chair that committee because he is a professor of information sciences. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out, and that's not an immediate objective, but it's a long-term objective.
Yep. So speaking of long-term objective, here we have outlined kind of our milestones and when we hope to have the different phases completed. So on April 1st, we hope to have the site launched with the promotion of volumes 1 and 2. In June, we hope to have volumes 3 and 4. And then in the early fall, we hope to have the blogging platform. And then to be determined is the research platform. So that we haven't determined when we'll get to that, but hopefully soon after the blogging platform. So I have a question and answers page, but I'm not sure, Ray, if you want to kind of
if we could hold that till the end, because I want Helene and Kevin to make their presentation about the documentary.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm gonna stop sharing.
Ray, could you let Kevin in?
Okay, let me see. I don't see the sign that says let me
I'm in. I'm in.
Oh, you're in.
I'm here.
Okay, perfect.
Hey,
perfect.
hey now. Hey now.
Okay, Kevin and Helene, I believe both of you guys can use the share screen if you want to do that, or if you just want to go.
No, I do. I actually, hi, everybody. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being on the call. It's so nice to see so many friendly, familiar faces. It's been an incredible 5-year journey for us working on the film. But I also want to take a second. Not everybody might realize that this is actually an anniversary week for Ray. He probably doesn't realize it either, but it's 10 years this week from when Ray had his first experiences.
Oh, yes, I completely forgot about that.
He has dedicated his life to this work. And so just big applause for Ray that he has been doing this for 10 years and that we, came in at the 5-year mark. We're late to the game, but happy to be a part of the work that Ray's done with the book and Jacob with the website. Our part of it has been the film. We met Ray, many of you know, 5 years ago. Since that time, we've been on the road filming with him. We've been to, just for the numbers, over a dozen cities. We have filmed 65 people, half experiencers, half scientists. And we would very proud to share that. We would say principal photography is pretty much complete. We're working on a sizzle. We're in post-production. If I could do the screen share, tell me what to do. I have a little pitch deck.
Jacob, go for it.
Is it
Oh, it's a green button at the bottom of the screen. If you move your mouse, it should
okay? And then
show itself. And then you're gonna have a few options. It's going to give you different things that you can share. So you can either share your entire screen or only a particular app.
Okay. I want to just do my Acrobat.
So if you can't, so you would look for Acrobat, and if you can't find it, I would just press the desktop button. It might say desktop 1.
Okay, give me a sec.
You could tell all the individuals that are 60 or older, those are the ones that have to ask these young folks like Jacob, how to operate these things.
I resemble that comment.
That's why when anybody asks me, do I know anything about computers? I just say, nope.
Nope. Exactly. Well,
Also-
listen, while
Yeah.
Helene is finding her stuff, I'm just going to jump in real quick because I'm on a personal deadline in my head. And so I'm at work actually on this project as we speak. So first of all, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to everybody. There's a lot of folks here that we've had the pleasure of working with. I see Mr. Mishloff is in the mix. Hi, Jeffrey. Your interview was phenomenal. So enlightening. And actually I could say that for the Reverend Michael Carter and Paulino and Preston and Linda, and Costa, I mean, and Mr. Alexander, some of these interviews and things we did, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago. So being deep into it all and just re-listening and reworking and now working with all of these different interviews, they're all phenomenal, each in their own right and each in their own way. Everybody brings their game to it, their A game, and the knowledge that they've come to and the experiences that they've had. And it's really awesome to just sit there and go through this material. And so we're very excited. Editing is like you start with and most everybody on this call knows this, you start with a big block of ice, a big chunk, boom. And then you start chiseling away until you get the sculpture that you want. That's my analogy. And there's no easy path to it, and there's no quickie way to do it. This isn't really a cookie cutter. It's not really a cookie cutter project. It's not like we're gonna do this project just like this TV show or that TV show. This has its own life because it has its own stories. It has its own human element. It has its own personalities. And so, that's what it is. And it's all based really on Ray's journey. I mean, Ray started this whole deal with his, experiences and I'm just looking at his stuff now. He was as far away from this world as you could possibly be.
Imagine a atheist, material rationalist, tax attorney.
Yeah, just as far away, and because he had these experiences, he grabbed a team of people, some of which and a lot of which are on this call, not the least of which is our dear astronaut in the sky, Mr. Edgar Mitchell, and started on this journey. This journey that many folks on this phone call have been on for years and years and years, but for him it was a discovery journey, and so that's what this film is. And along the way he discovers things, and we meet all of you folks, and I mean, Jeffrey and Raymond Moody, and just so many. Costas from 2.5 years ago. So so we're in editorial, we're chiseling. We're in the process of reaching out to animators and composers to work with us on this film. We're working on that teaser trailer that once completed will help us do a little bit of fundraising as we have been self-funding. We have all been self-funding this ourselves. But yeah, so Helene's pitch shows some of the imagery from the movie, which is really nice stuff.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it. It's got a greater reality, one man's journey of discovery.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna click through it. We don't have to sit and read it, but just for those of you who were more part of the book and may not know what the movie is about, this is what we call a pitch deck. And so this is just a quick synopsis. The documentary is different from the book because we have the opportunity to sit across from people, and then we're going to be able to intercut people's stories with the scientists. rather than in separate chapters. And what Ray can tell you is that from the moment he made the book, he knew he would need to make a movie too. This is our cast. This isn't everybody, but this is a nice cross representation of some of the people that we had a chance to speak with. And so we're very proud that people have given us of their time and expertise. This is Ray's story, which we all know. This is a visual representation of the contact modalities, which really, I think, have mainstreamed even in the 5 years that we've been working on the film. I think that
Definitely.
the universe is like a character on TV now, and the world has caught up with us. It's difficult, you know, when you're always ahead of your time to wait for the world to catch up. But I think with this, we have. And there have been a lot of movies out there already. What the bleep, what comes to mind. We think that this is the first film that's going to combine the science and physics of consciousness with parapsychology, with non-human intelligence, and the contact modalities. These are some of the topics that we're going to hit, the overview. This was our goals 5 years ago, and I think we've really done a great job of sitting down with people, and we've had some heady conversations. And then here's a little first look. Ray hasn't even seen this, so surprise, Ray. We promised you something for your anniversary. Oh, I gave myself goosebumps.
Yeah, it looks
So
wonderful.
first look at what we call color-corrected frames from the film.
It looks wonderful. And there at the bottom right are my dear friends, Alberto and his wife, Rebecca. And I consider Alberto's experiences, many of them were co-shared with his wife. She was telling, I just thought, she was telling us in her interview how she put her hand under Alberto, who was floating like 4 or 5 inches off of his bed. And she was freaking out, like saying, he's floating. and tons of
Alberto's a real heavyweight. He's an ex-DEA agent. He has had a life that is nothing short of phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, this man was the guy that caught Noriega from Panama importing tons of cocaine into the Dominican Republic, and he even dressed up as a mafia don from Colombia with the gold chain and the Cuban cigar and stuff like that. Meeting with all of these drug lords. I mean, and he wrote a book. I think it's titled what was the book? Oh goodness, I've got it right here, but it's oh, here it is, right here, for anyone that can see it. It's here's his book, Chasing Dictators. Okay, and here's a picture of him, and he's got all of his awards, his DEA, documents.
Yeah,
and,
he's
I
an
know
amazing.
that John gave him a secret handshake, and Alberto responded accordingly. So just to let you know that Alberto's the real deal, and it's just unbelievable once you listen to his experiences.
Yeah, and one of many.
Yeah, many.
And one of many. When you look at the people on this call, I can tell you, because I've been going through all these interviews with everybody. There's a lot of great insight, and some of you folks we had the chance to spend a little bit more time with than others, but it's all a really rich palette.
And also, I just want to say that Jacob is a volunteer. All the work that he's doing on these 2 websites, is volunteer. Both Kevin and Helene and myself, we've been self-funding this documentary for 5 years. We've gone through half of the United States to interview people at enormous sacrifices. Every time I take off for these things, I have to take vacation time. There were several years that I had zero vacation time left. But yet it's important, as many of you know, to be able to portray many of the experiencers that are here, and be able to present some of the science, some of the academics that have been researching this for many, many, many years, that have gone largely unnoticed. And so we want to be able to mix both, academics, science, physics with the experiencer, and be able to present this in a way that gives it credibility, and a way that does not demean the experiencer, but to show that, look, who knows, maybe half of the population of the world are having these experiences, except like the medical doctor that I spoke about, Dr. Melinda Greer. She was hesitant, Kevin and Helene know, to even agree to be videotaped, to write a chapter for a book. And it took me literally months and months and months of trying to convince her. And I said, look, I'll hold off on the video, in our book until you retire, and then Alberto is a retired DEA agent. He's retired now. Okay. So now he's like, what the hell? I'm going to go public with his experiences.
What's super exciting is hearing all these stories, being with all of you, and then also contemplating 25 years from now, 50 years from now, when we look back, well, we probably won't be, well, maybe 25 years, maybe, but, this, the evolution of mankind has got to start with consciousness. So excited to be a part of that journey. Like Helene said, we're a little bit, well, not Helene. Helene's been on this topic since the day I met her, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. I'm a little late coming to the party, but it's an honor to be able to do something like this. And we're not really doing it for the money, because there's no roadmap that's going to say, somebody's going to drop buckets of cash. But, if we're going to leave something behind, if our voice is going to be heard, 25 or 30 years from now, have it be this. I've spent my life, my personal, professional life, promoting, pop stars and doing all kinds of, Star Trek documentaries, which is kind of in the realm. And it's funny because Rudy Shield mentioned having been reached out to by Gene Roddenberry in our last interview. So it's all connected. We know it's all connected. We know we're all here because that's what the plan was. So it's good to be a part of that.
Kevin, can you tell us about the Sizzler reel? When do you expect that to be released? And then an estimated timeline of the documentary and the process of getting a documentary out, just so folks have a very brief overview of this whole process.
Well, the sizzle goes out really when it's ready to go out. And what I mean by that is, a sizzle or a trailer is really your kind of one shot sometimes with somebody in a position of, green lighting something or power. So that sizzle's got to be right. And the movie, a documentary like this is going to take, good part of 6 months, if we can stay on it and we get some help, 6 months to cut. At the same time, there's animation and graphics to be done, and sound design and composition to be done. And all of those sort of happen simultaneously. The way that this documentary is going to be cut is that we have to edit down that block of ice to that sculpture that gives us the road map. And then from there, then we go out and start plugging in additional visuals. We go out and shoot some additional visuals. We reach out for the things that because we can't tell every single story. It would be 65 hours long, right? So that's the process. The process is to go through the material, decide what content is going to be used, how it's going to be used. And then between the stuff that we've already shot, then you realize what you need to get and what you need to pick up to make it whole. So it's a little ambiguous in terms of the time, but I think we're talking about somewhere in the next 9 months. That would be the goal.
We're aiming for 11/11/22 for a public screening date.
That's very ambitious there. As a matter of fact,
very ambitious.
Just a little,
That's in the fall. It's in 9 months.
just a little short story about Gary Schwartz. Here's a man who got a PhD from Harvard. Okay, he went on to teach at Harvard. He then became tenured at Yale, and then University of Arizona lured him away, and he's eminent scholar. Okay, all of a sudden Helene blurts out, look, it's 11:11 because it was 11 a.m. with 11 minutes, and it was like 11 seconds or something like that. And Gary had that clock there. And he goes, who said that? Who said that? He just stops it. He goes, what did you just say? And she goes, 11:11. She goes, I get that all the time. 11:11. And so
Sure.
it's we're not crazy here. This guy from Harvard, tenured professor at Harvard, is basically immersed in
He's doing some very exciting work for sure. The soul phone, the possibilities of the soul phone are really incredible. Yep.
Anyway, it's been a little bit. It's 7:05 now. Should we take questions from the audience members, and we'll try to be brief? Does anyone have any questions? You could unmute yourself and ask the question.
I think this is more of a status report, for everyone, Ray, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is what we wanted. We wanted everybody to know where we were with this project, because, like I said, some of these interviews we did 3-4 years ago. I mean, it's been, I think, what was it? Was it 2020 when we saw Mr. Alexander? Linda was around that time. So it's not too long, but we just wanted to let you know, where we were, full speed ahead. This is what we're doing. And, so it wasn't something that was just done and you would never hear from it again. Obviously, Ray is in the process of his books, and we haven't stopped working on it. The COVID hit us pretty hard, right? Because, we saw Mr. Alexander, and Linda and Costas, and all of this was before COVID, and then COVID, and I don't have to tell everybody, we all know what that did. So that shut us down for at least 1.5 years. It was tough. And we really didn't have enough of the material that we really needed to have to start really trying to piece things together. So in the last, 4 months, we were able to, pick up quite a bit of wonderful stuff. Preston, one of them, and Danny Sheehan, and many, many others. So
we got mad with power with our booster. As soon as we got our booster shots, we hit the road. We did 4 shoots last year. We went to Laughlin. We went on a 1,000-mile road trip to film Eben Alexander and team up in Virginia. And then we did a new shoot here with Ray. It was crazy. And then we did another shoot. We got on a plane and flew to Boston and drove to New Hampshire. So
wow.
I think we filmed 20 people just last year alone. And so now we feel like we can really edit with a full palette.
With enough material. Paul, you have a question?
Yeah, just very briefly, Kevin and Helene, on the graphic, on the contact modalities, make sure you put an R in poltergeist.
Oh,
that's
perfect.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh. I have one question.
Yes, Linda.
If you guys need.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, how are you?
So long.
I know, it's been like forever. Helene, we have to do girls' night.
There you go.
We got to do the girls' night. It's been
Okay.
forever.
we've been, it's on our bucket list to get back with you too, Linda, to do a little bit of additional stuff that we didn't finish, along with, several others. Fortunately, on our road trip, we were able to spend some time with the Reverend Michael Carter, which was
Cool.
fantastic because we had
Yeah.
not met the Reverend MC before, and he's just the sweetest, greatest guy in the world. And we had a great couple of days with Michael, and we were able to tape a sermon of his. And it's just it's in part what the movie's all about, the feeling from those 2 days with him. So
Wow. Oh, I had a quick question. If you guys needed music scoring, music composition, or any sound design, Foley, I know how to do all of that.
Okay.
Sound effects. I can help with the sound editing also.
Awesome.
I don't know what programs you're using. If I'm familiar with Adobe Audition CC,
Okay.
and Adobe Premiere Pro. So
Right now it's stock music until we get out of so we can
Right.
Set the tone for certain things, and then those will be replaced.
Right.
But yeah,
right,
we
right.
can catch that on a
Okay.
sidebar.
Yeah,
for sure.
and just let me know if you want me to just kind of review, some stuff, some scenes, and then I could, get a feel or what kind of feel you're looking for, if you're looking for a certain style.
Okay.
So we
that
can
sounds
work on
good.
that.
That sounds good.
And that's, of course, that's voluntary. I'm not asking for anything. I don't want anything.
That's very nice, Linda. Thank you.
Just
for
want to
that.
put that out there.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Linda.
lot.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do want to mention too is that, we are, and we will continue to be in need of, until this thing actually, somebody says, or we say, stop, done, material, any kind of, material that can support, these contact modalities. So we need, whether it's, phone footage or little video camera footage or anything that can help illustrate these things that we have the rights to or can get the rights to. These things are very important, obviously. So this project started off with the sciences because the physics and the heavyweight academics, because that's what Ray wanted. He wanted the credibility factor to lead this charge. And so we really didn't, Linda, you were one of the early experiencers that we filmed. So it's really in the last year since COVID, we've gotten out on the road and gotten some of this, some of the experiencers, and they've all been great. Can't have enough of them. Can't have enough footage. So anybody that has, that can help us in that area, it would be much appreciated.
Okay. So, and any kind of footage I can do pertaining to, my experiences that I could think of.
Yes, and that's why I said, Linda, on a sidebar after this Zoom call, maybe not tonight, but in the next few days, we should get together with you and discuss some of those things. Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, what I was thinking of is that, by the way, usually the real sculptors talk about setting the bird free, not chipping the eyes down to it. But you're releasing the whatever you're starving.
All right.
No, but what I was thinking of is when you talked about a quote phase 4 on that, you've got a lot of work to do in doing the editing, getting down. But
Yes,
what
sir.
about taking all of these interviews, or most of them, probably in their entirety, and using that as part of the things that people can access later? Because you're going to end up with far too much material, and a lot of good stuff ends up on the cutting room floor.
That's true.
If you put this in something that people can access if they want to sit through, the entire interview.
Well, that's certainly a good recommendation. We just because we don't know what we're going to use at this point, and we're not sure that this won't end up being a part 2 as well, Mr. Alexander. We could, if somebody sees this first doc and says, "Hey, do you have anything more?" When we did The Captains with William Shatner, it was the first documentary that we did with him. We ended up with so much material, kind of like this project, to be honest with you, now thinking back on it, that the network said, "Do you have anything more?" And we ended up selling and cutting 5 additional half hours.
But no matter what you do, you end up with too much. And that's what I'm just suggesting. If you have, and Ray can set up, or whoever runs the website, actually, but take you to, where if they want to look at the original.
Yes.
Because that's the other side of that, is that if somebody to do that, you got to sit through a lot of stuff.
Yes.
That, may or may not be of interest.
Yep. Okay.
That idea.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, we can call it a night. All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, this is just a brief overview to give you a status update of these 2 major projects that we've been working on for 5 years, and we're reaching down, heading down the home stretch. So the book will be published within the next 2 months. The websites will, at least the book's website, will be launched on April 1st, and that will be continually developed. The documentary you just heard, we're going to be hopefully coming up with a sizzler, a trailer within the next few months. And then,
definitely.
Yeah. And then the sculpture will be done when it gets done, and hopefully it won't melt down the ice sculpture there.
John, I was just to say to John, we got to chisel the thing down, so we give it we cut through that ice enough to free the energy.
That's right.
That's what I have to say, John.
That's right. So in other words, we're getting close. We're getting very, very close, and I want to thank every one of you here. You have been, each and every one have been very instrumental in both of our projects. And I continue to support each and every one of you with your own individual projects, and just let me know how I can help in any way to promote your work as well. So thank you very much, and good night, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.